for a fat trade paperback, flocking to the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy, Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, and once again, we are presenting my Sketchy Goodness with none other than the amazing, the talented, the beautiful Keith Grachow. Keith, how you doing tonight, bud?
Good. How you doing? I was just like quickly posting that we're on tonight, live on
Doing the thing. Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Spread the word.
Wednesday night reviews. Here we go. And I'm going to share that. Fantastic. And let me get onto Instagram in case anybody has any questions for us that I can answer. So how you doing, man? We were just kind of chatting about what our week's been like, and it seems like I've seen a lot of podcasts you've been promoting. You've been doing something with Wayside.
Yeah. So Wayside Comics, actually, nice little shout out. Appreciate that. Wayside Comics has I don't know if I'd call it a show they do, but they do like a creator spotlight. So every Saturday, as you know, they will go out and put stuff on, and they basically have artists there to come hang out. You could see their books, you could buy their books, just meet them, signatures, whatever. And one of the people that frequents the shop and is associated with Omar, the guy who runs the shop, of course. Jordan, he has a little show he's firing up called By the Wayside, where he interviews creators, much like I do, but in a slightly different way. He keeps it to like a 30-minute show, and he'll do 2 or 3 interviews that are 10 minutes a pop, just to be like, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? Where can people support you? And maybe 1 or 2 others. So he had me on, and it was the first time I was ever a guest on a show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was odd. It was different. I liked it. Would definitely do again. Though I don't know if I would be the right person to have on a show like that, but I digress. But yeah, it was kind of a cool experience. And then for the folks out there, again, on Instagram, By the Wayside, go check it out. He's got all sorts of people on. He's planning content for quite a few months in advance, whereas my show, I kind of do it a week or 2 in advance because people just constantly are reaching out. So he might have more structured content. But yeah, that was sort of cool. And I owe somebody a review. So there is a book live on Kickstarter now that I got to read earlier today while I was at work. Oh my God, I feel like such a bad person. I'm behind. Roberto Villacava at least got me onto it. So the campaign is called Nathaniel Fox. And I am so sorry, folks out there. You're getting a shot on my phone. It's going to yell at me. Basically, it's a really cool comic. Unofficially, it feels like what Indiana Jones was meant to be. Or rather, what a modern take on Indiana Jones would be. It basically focuses on Nathaniel, who is ginger, but also a professor and a rather big guy. So he doesn't look like a professor, but neither guest does Indy. And he is going through just trying to, investigate some ancient places, learn some cool history, and all of a sudden political stuff starts happening. And because it is based in the World War II era, you've got the Germans supporting people, but then through back channels it's a whole thing. And that's where I'm like, it feels too bright. It feels like what Indiana Jones could have been or should have been in the modern context. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. I should bring that up. Anyway, it's a really cool book. It's got some cool action. The art is awesome. So yeah, that's one thing I owe Roberto a review. So I will get to that. But then I'm here with you.
Yeah, that's right.
What about you, Keith? What have you been up to?
Well, I've just announced that Saltwater number 5 is in production. So yeah, Mitch Cook and I are officially. Well, he sent a script to me, and that's what I've been working on this week. Is the thumbnails for this really cool story, and which we really can't talk too much about it. I think I can say that it's going to definitely reward people that have been following Saltwater for the last 4 issues. There's some really cool visuals that I'm drawing right now that I'm looking forward to, like do some research to, reference stuff and figure out some cool. I have a very basic idea of what they are at this point, but to get into a little bit more of the design of it. So, yeah, that kind of stuff has been on my digital screen for the last few days, and then I've trying to also I've also got my the book that I'm working on with my mom. I'm still working on that too. So that's slowly. Well, it's actually much faster pace it's been for the last few years. So, yeah. So I'm working through the art on that and the editing again on that, which I can't tell you how many times at this point I've read this book. Yeah. So those two things have pretty much been taking up a lot of my time. Plus, like. Story, some other stuff that I'm working on, and that I'll start talking about more once I know that we're going to be putting it out. All right. So yeah. So that's been my week so far, and then I was just saying, Konrad, next week I am going on a kind of family thing with a bit of work in the middle there and more family stuff. So I'll be in Wilmington, Delaware, and then in Philly for Fan Expo. So, your sound went away. So I'm gonna vamp while let me share my screen. So. Sharing my screen. There we go. So last week I was working. I was on Wednesday Night Review, doing a sketch duel with Mike Ruth and Kevin. Manklow, I believe is his last name. Kevin Manklow. Yep. We were doing a themed rebirth. And I ended up doing a sketch of New Mutants, Cypher, and Warlock. Yeah. Which, when I first started thinking about Rebirth, I had done a bunch of thumbnails, just kind of, I don't know, get things going, see if there's anything that I was interested in drawing. Right and on. I didn't use any of them because, like Mike and Kevin were like, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to draw. So I'm like, okay, let's all do from just the same point and have no idea what we're going to do. And so I actually came up with the Cypher Warlock thing maybe a few minutes before the show started. I'm like,
cool.
So that's yeah. So I think we should. Everybody's probably seen that. It's on the Wednesday Night Review and my Instagram.
Yeah. Anyway. Are you good if I bring up your Photoshop?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it hasn't been. Yeah, there you go.
No, it's all there.
Yeah, so these are the thumbnails that I didn't do anything with. That I'm going. Well, I mean, there's some stuff that I like with them. There's a nice immediacy to it, in regards to the idea of rebirth, at least in my mind's eye. So I was like, well, let's see if there's one that we can work on. So I'm not seeing anybody popping in yet to our feed.
Not yet, but that's okay.
Yeah. So I will then ask if you wanted to, if there's one that you wanted me to kind of start working on here. So again, there was nothing. There were just like a couple with the Phoenix theme, and then one of them was just more like like a human, like an android type.
Yeah,
thing. So that's a rebirth, right?
You know what? I don't know why. I really like the far left one.
This one, so far left, this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, run with that.
Okay, cool.
The funny thing, I've started working at Nowhere Comics in downtown Toronto, and just sort of bagging and boarding comics more or less. And we were going through this collection, and I'm going through and bagging and boarding and stuff. And I pulled out a Scotty Young cover of Warlock, and I was like, oh. And in my brain saw it and went, Keith drew this.
Mm.
Well, not, but yeah, it was funny because I'm like, oh, I would have no clue who this is if it's not for Keith.
Oh, you're not familiar with those characters?
No, when you drew that, I had no clue who that was. I've never, other than the John Hickman stuff from like the recent, I guess you can't really call it recent anymore, but for the last few years of X-Men, I've never really read X-Men. My exposure to it has been the cartoon show, the movies, and some video games. But beyond that, not much.
Yeah. So I think I may have talked about this on this show, but I've talked about how I got into reading comics before on podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think that my introduction to the X-Men mainly was I'd started collecting comics. I must have been 10 or 11 years old. And my cousin I remember, I have a memory of seeing the comics he had when I visited Long Island in the 80s. I used to live in New Jersey, and so we'd go to the island, Long Island, New York, quite often. And he had I remember Captain America. I remember Avengers. He may have had X-Men. I don't remember, but I specifically Punisher. I think he had some of that stuff. It was mainly Marvel. I don't remember any DC stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Maybe I want to start collecting comics too. He may have even given me a couple. He may have had some doubles because I do have some Captain America from that time and some Avengers. And it makes sense that he maybe started build. If I didn't already have some comics before, he helped build some of them. So shout out to Matt. Thank you, sir. And so I had some neighbor down the street selling a long box full of comics, and they were at the time, comics back at that point were I don't know, 25, 30 cents anyway. They weren't that expensive compared to how expensive they are today. So he was I think gave him $20, and I got 50 or 60 or more. I can't remember. Just a huge, a huge stack of comics, and a lot of them were Uncanny X-Men and Amazing Spider-Man and Avengers. So I do remember starting my collection of X-Men and maybe even some New Mutants through that neighbor. I just fell in love with I've always loved Spider-Man, but I just really fell in love with anything X-Men related. And that's
cool.
So it started probably with that neighbor introducing me to the X-Men specifically. And then I continued collecting throughout the years. And one of those collections was New Mutants. I'm not sure if they're worth a lot today, but probably not. But they're valuable to me. So I've always loved that run of, it was Bob McLeod and Bill Sienkiewicz. Or I always forget how he pronounces his name. They were artists on it. I think Chris Claremont was the writer, and so yeah, I just really, and there was just something really sweet about Cypher and Warlock, the two, one of the early characters from part of the New Mutants group, and so I don't know. I hadn't really drawn them, and I don't know if I might have drawn Warlock before, but it's been years if I have. So
Yeah.
it was really nice to. It was just one of those things where it's like, you know what, there is something about like a rebirth with those characters, and considering I think Cypher died, and then Warlock kind of brought him back because it was his best friend, right? Warlock was like this alien that was kind of fish out of water and very innocent and didn't understand human life, and so Cypher was there to kind of help guide him. And so New Mutants, I actually have that graphic novel there.
Right on.
It's one of the first graphic novel. I don't believe that was ever an individual comic story. I think that was an actual like story told.
Oh, just here's the whole boom.
Yeah, they did. They had some of those in the 80s. They not too many. There was like an X-Men one, New Mutants one, where they were just like standalone. I don't believe they were actually like a mini series. And they were larger size. They were like a larger format. If I can find,
like, I think somewhere, I have this cover, because I saw it in a store and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah, I'll just bring a couple.
I like when we get to see collections. That's a fun part.
Yeah, just bear with me here. Sorry about.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Here we go. Okay, so yeah, there's like just a couple. I've got a couple more, but yeah, like they had these like larger format, larger sized, compared to.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, they're like quite chunky.
Yeah, so this is my comic book, and then this is like it's a bit larger size. So
yeah, just a pinch.
Yeah, so these are from the 80s, and I don't believe that they were. They actually, if you look in the interiors from 1982, you can't really. I don't think you'll be able to see this, but let's see if I can get this in here. So it's saying graphic novel number 4.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I think, let's see if this one's numbered. Marvel graphic novel. They stopped numbering them. I've got one more. Let me see. I believe there was a Punisher one, which I.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Now I'm my interest has been piqued. It's a Marvel graphic novel, and there's one more I have. Here we go. Yeah. So, so we got an X-Men.
Ooh.
God Loves Mankind, which is quite well known. This is Marvel graphic novel number 5. 1982. So it must have been 1982 that they were doing is a Punisher. This is this beautiful Jorge Zaffino art. Carl Potts, who I've met, who's going to be at Philly. I met him recently in New Orleans.
Oh, maybe you should bring that and get him to sign it.
Yeah, he's he already gave me a book. So. Oh,
okay.
But no, this one was a number 2. So it's interesting. But I think these are all standalone. So Marvel at one point had like an early. I'm sure maybe it was like ROM was another one. That seems to. If anybody's what Wayside's out there, So there was those characters, the New Mutants. Just I felt that because it was in the 80s and X-Men had been going on since the 60s, it was a little easier to start collecting some of these other, X-Men type books. X Factor is another one that came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? You can start from number 1. So I think I just started collecting any of those types of books along with the X-Men books, just so I had, like something from the beginning. Like Warlock. I haven't read the X-Men in a while, but so I don't know what the status of some of these characters are right now. But I know that there was some like there was like the Phalanx War or something where Warlock was like part of this techno virus. He's it's kind of like the Borg, like it's like between you had like the Brood for the X-Men, which were like the Alien, the
Okay.
The Alien, James Cameron's Alien, that was the Brood, and then you had like the Phalanx, which were like these techno virus type of Borg creatures that would take over organics and make them like these inorganic kind of slaves, and Warlock was trying to get away from that, trying to be their own person or whatever, or own being, whatever Warlock was. And so anyway, I just those were characters that I always had an affinity for, more than some of the other X-Men characters who, they were cool, but nothing didn't really connect the same way, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, you always will get those characters that, for you, for whatever reason, they click and they stand out and they just feel right. And then, yeah, they pique your interest. Well, you'll be happy to know, apparently, recently, Warlock has rejoined the New Mutants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a weird-looking character, and I dig it. I'm just over on... here, I'll bring it up real quick. I'm just checking out Warlock on Marvel's own site. I appreciate that they give like this sort of power scaling thing, but like a fairly in-depth background, like 10 paragraphs or so. That's pretty cool.
Are you watching did we talk about this, if you're watching X-Men 97?
We haven't, but by God, yes, am I watching this show. I think it's so far fantastic. I have not watched this week's episode, but to me, it's hit it out of the park every time. Other than the Mojo episode, which like in and of itself is not a bad episode. It's just they kind of parked it in like the semi-beginning middle of this story arc, and it's like, okay. So I don't know. Maybe they just felt it would feel weird if they suddenly went off and started telling characters, like they introduced the newest character and then they kind of veered off onto a new direction and like didn't worry about him for a bit. And it's like maybe they were just trying to show that, hey, he's still around. He's still in the X-Men's mansion. He's just not on the team. But everything else I've loved. I will say the animation, it took me a minute to get used to, but now I quite like it. Because it's kind of pseudo emulating the old 90s animation.
Yeah.
While adding in, like, I think for me what it is it has too much detail. Or not detail, motion. Like in the old cartoons, you didn't get like every little blink and the mouth movement, and now you are. So like going from that to what it is, it's like, whoa, quite jarring because you're getting a lot. Yeah, so far I really like it. How do you feel about it?
So this is not going to be a popular opinion. I've already had this conversation and a bit of confrontation from Martin Duncan. We're having very, very, not, I wouldn't say heated, but so let me preface it by saying, as I had said before, X-Men they're one of my favorite comic books. I love the characters. I was reading Uncanny X-Men all throughout the 80s and 90s. I mean, I really, I can't say that when like they rebooted it to, or they got the X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men comics, that the X-Men comic was my favorite. I still like the Uncanny X-Men more than the X-Men, which they, in the 90s when Jim Lee started the X-Men. I liked it, but it wasn't as good, I thought, as like the Uncanny. But
Okay.
anyway, the show I used to watch while I was working. My dad got me a job. He was a customs official, and he helped get me a job. He didn't get me the job, but he helped connect me with a person who was working at this small, like a jet center, which was where small planes, jets would come in from the Bahamas into Fort Lauderdale.
You have a fascinating work history, sir.
Yeah, this was a pretty interesting job because really didn't require. I had started university. It didn't require a lot of like brain power. They just needed a body there. They needed somebody to be present and collect a tax from people that came in from, let's say, the Bahamas on their Cessna, and like then they would
Casual,
go. Yeah, they had to. I think they went probably through customs first, and then me, and then, I can't remember which order it was, but yeah, like essentially they had to pay a tax. I think they went through customs and immigration. Then they came to me to pay this like tax.
Okay, cool.
Can't remember it being that much. And so that was my job. People would come through after they've dealt with immigration customs, and now they're, the last thing they do is they have to fill out this form and pay me. And they were good to be back in the States. And I wouldn't get anybody coming in for hours. So I think my job started at like 7 a.m. And they needed me there till like noon or 1 or something. And so it was like a 6-hour job, and it worked really well because I may not have had classes until the evening, or maybe it was like a day off or whatever.
Okay.
So I don't think I worked. I think I worked there just on like Saturdays, maybe Saturdays and Sundays, like on the weekends. So I may not have had class anyway, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway. So, so I would have, first of all, after doing it a couple of weeks, you get a sense, like, first of all, I didn't really have a boss. I don't remember. I think it was they just needed somebody there to, make sure you're collecting this money.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, I didn't really have anybody that I needed to like answer to really. And I don't think anybody was there anyway. It was just the customs and immigration people. And so, like, I would basically fall asleep. I'd be sleeping for hours. But I would also watch Saturday morning cartoons. So they had the X-Men cartoon on the Saturday mornings that I would check out while I was working at this job. I just remember, I think they were on at like 10 or something. And so I remember by this point I'd be getting hungry. They had opened up the lunch counter, so I'd be able to order like wings or something for 10 o'clock and watch X-Men and eat wings. And it's two of my favorite things in the world. And I absolutely, that was one of my favorite jobs. I mean, I met some famous people that came through, and, that was fun as well. Like, nothing, you wouldn't do anything other than just be like, oh, I enjoy your TV show or movie. Or
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly.
That was about the extent I fawned over them. I'm not really that kind of person. So when the X-Men 97 came out, I was very excited because, I had very fun memories of X-Men 92, or the 92 series. And the comic book and the storylines, like all that stuff was great. And so my initial reaction was, this is beautifully done. Like, to your point of like some of the details where actually the limitations and or the cost cutting they had to do to be able to do this. I think it was a syndicated cartoon, if I'm not mistaken, but to be able to do the show at a cost, back at that time, they would reuse backgrounds and,
Yep.
like they would reuse like movements and, if somebody's speaking or whatever. So it was very, like that was just part of the show for
exactly.
kids. I knew it, I saw it, but it never bothered me because it was like, that was what a show was. That's what it looked like to watch a cartoon in the 80s and the 90s. But today, obviously they can make it much more detailed and showing people, their mouths moving, eyes blinking, and little details so that part I'm like, this is awesome, because it's like, it's what I would have wanted it to have been if they had unlimited amounts of money back in the 90s, right? To be able to really make this high-end looking show. The music, it brings you back, and the characters and stuff like that. So all of that is really cool. But what I think happened somewhere between the 90s and now, and I was having this conversation with Adam Poitier, I think that's how you say his name, from Nexus Comics out in Kingston.
Okay.
I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. Is it Poitier or something like that? So Adam and I were talking about it because I told him how I felt. And he's like, well, maybe it's because your tastes in regards to like both comic books and animation have evolved so that it's hard for you to go backwards in regards to the storylines. So, and that actually made a lot of sense to me, because like, as much as I love the X-Men comics, I haven't necessarily gone back to reread them. I'm planning on it, but I think that I love like Blue Eye Samurai and the Avatar, The Last Airbender, with the couple decades ago now, but the storylines for those were just so well developed. Once I saw what could happen with a story and how you can make them as good as any live action show,
or better.
It's hard to. I think it's, for me, what's jarring about the X-Men '97 cartoon series is that it's so over the top soap opera-ish, and it's so like just the way the wording they're using. And I know they're trying to. It's not like a mistake. It's not like they're doing something where they're like they're not writing it well, because they are. It's just that for me, I can't get into it because it's too cheesy. It's too
interesting.
It's just too much of a reminder every time I'm going. There's just too many like when you have really tight storytelling and character development. I think that when you see how they're kind of fudging some of the story, like storyline and character development, to like just go along with the way the story used to be, and the way the cartoon, it's too, to me, like, if they were going to evolve it, they could have evolved it to be a little bit more. I mean, maybe they couldn't. I don't know. Maybe they can't make it more of like more natural dialogue. It's this over the top, like Magneto being very, one-dimensional in many ways, or very preachy sounding, or like, I mean, I don't anybody watching, I'm going to kind of spoil it a little if you've watched. So just stop watching for a moment if you haven't watched it and you plan on watching it.
X-Men 97, that is.
Yeah,
X-Men 97. You haven't watched that yet.
So
walk away from the stream, come back in 10 minutes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So at the end of the one with Madeline Pryor, right, where she goes, "Call me Madeline Pryor." That to me was just the cheesiest thing. Like, I mean, I get that there's like, it makes sense in the comic book, but it didn't make sense in the TV show. Yeah. Like, there's no like explanation for it. Hold on a moment, Mr. Sidney, where are you going, buddy? got a runner.
Dog on the loose.
We got a runner. Yeah, bud.
Oh, what a good pup.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes.
So
any of you two want to be on stream? No.
So that's it. I just find that there's like a lot of that kind of very they're hewing so close to the actual original comic and the cartoon that I don't know. They're if you're going to do something like that, it almost has to be comedic versus they're playing it so straight that I can't get it. I just keep on going. Oh, this is so cheesy. This is just the because they're also trying to balance like more modern ideals, right? Because here's the thing, we like when it comes to how we treat people, you can't. There's certain things we can't say or do like we were able to say or do in the 90s without people wouldn't. You shouldn't have said it at that time, but it was more acceptable. People wouldn't, like, hey, baby, that kind of stuff. Some of that kind of like very misogynistic, patriarchal, whatever you want to, so the fact that they have like morph who's could be, they're they, right? Which is they're updating it, which is great, but at the same time, they're not updating some of the other dialogue, and so it's a little bit of a. It kind of just throws me out quite enough that I'm not enjoying it as much as some of the other people who I know are just, and I wish I could. That's the one thing that really kind of makes me kind of sad that I haven't been able to just like get past it and just like don't get me wrong. There's been some fantastic like moments in this series that I was like, ooh, this is really cool. But those are kind of few and far between. I find that like the whole thing with Professor X on with Lalandra and all that stuff, and it's just so cheesy. I don't know. It's not really. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm gonna reread the original comic, and I wonder if because you have, first of all, a lot of these storylines, they're just kind of like cutting and pasting them together.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're taking stuff that happened a fair chunk apart, and then for the sake of the show, cramming it so that they kind of overlap here and there where they maybe shouldn't. Yeah, well,
out of necessity, they don't have the ability to make an issue, like take one issue and make it an episode, right? So they're taking multiple issues and cutting and pasting some of it to make a more compelling storyline, which I get, but I wonder if that is also the hindrance for it, because then you're because you're cutting and pasting a lot of this stuff, it's not developing as much as it would in the comic, and therefore it feels more jarring to me knowing some of the storyline. I'm just like going, it felt so much more epic when I read the comic. But in me, here's the thing, I may go back and read the comic and go, yeah, I'm just not feeling it either. That being said, I have been rereading some of my older comics, and I'm not feeling it. I'm sorry, I'm not getting that same feeling. It's because it's a comic book reading is more. It's a different experience than watching something. There's a more of a. You're as a comic book reader, you're controlling things a little bit more than, let's say, when you're watching something on anime. You're more in control of what's your eyes are the camera, and you're kind of you're focusing on something longer or shorter, even like the creative team is manipulating you to look at it in a certain way and a certain time length and stuff, but you still have control over it.
Like you control the pauses, you control the pacing, because as a comic reader, you read as long as you need to take, right? You could pay attention to a scene as long as you need, or a panel, before you go on and flip the page or whatever. Interesting.
Yeah.
quick shout out to a few people. Kevin Manklow is in Instagram saying, "Hey guys, I want Marvel to bring me Alpha Flight on a screen. I would love that. I'd be down." Stranded Comics has joined in Instagram. Hello, Stranded Comics. Light a Match as well. And I think earlier, we had some other great folks. Do feel free, whether you're live on Instagram, live on YouTube, live on Twitch with us, drop a comment. What's your opinion on the X-Men show, the new X-Men cartoon, I should say? But yeah, it's an interesting one. And like for me, there are things, and I think a lot of this too goes because I have not read the original comics. Because when the X-Men show came out, when it came out, I was one. I remember watching it when I was older and like loving the theme song and the action, but not maybe getting the message. So like for me, this show, it's all new content to me. So the pacing for me is gone, right? Like it doesn't matter. It's just however they're feeding me that information. I will say I highly enjoy from the, I want to say the second episode, where Magneto's put on trial. I appreciated one that they literally peeled a shot off of a cover of the comic, which is great. But like I like the fact that Magneto's a little bit preachy when it comes to certain moments, but then other times maybe not so much. Like you said, I think some of the dialogue feels very campy and very forced. Yes, Kevin, I was 1 year old in 1992. Depending on the month you're in, I could have been less. But yeah, I find it fascinating because other shows that I've watched or enjoyed, or other content I've consumed in the original medium, and then when I finally get it as a TV show, a movie, a video game, whatever, that pacing change can be extremely jarring. And I think another important thing to remember is, sort of to your point earlier, when you read a comic book, right? Like when, I don't know, say you're reading Rocketeer: The Great Race. You finish this comic, right? 24 pages, I think it's standard comic size. And you then have to wait a month. So you get to sit with that information in that moment, that final cliffhanger, for a month before you flip the second page or the next issue open. And I think something about that delay can help build the momentum, the anticipation, and that feeling of time between events. That being said, yes, they absolutely are, for the sake of being able to put it all together, taking stuff that would have taken 12 issues, cramming it to 3 episodes, and overlapping it with stuff from a totally different arc. So they're doing a lot with not a lot of time. So yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I will say, funnily enough, when my partner and I finished the last week's episode, Disney popped up the thing and was like, "Hey, do you want to watch number 1, episode 1 of the first series?" And I was like, "Sure, put it on. Night of the Sentinels, let's go." And Vanessa was like, "Please turn it off." I'm like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "I can't watch this." And she's like, "It is so different in animation. The pacing is so different, and it's like corny." And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's 30 years old now.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So she's getting the reverse almost. She's getting the same effect I'm getting, but with the reverse show, which is, I mean, maybe we're just saying the same thing. I think is that, but there's something. Yeah. There's something very jarring about it for me. Especially with the character development and I don't know. I think that I'll finish it because I started it, but I can't say that it's the show that I look forward to when it comes to because I'm like watching Invincible, the second season just finished.
Don't tell me, no spoilers.
Okay, yeah. So I just finished that, and it was very good. I enjoyed it.
Okay,
and,
rock
and
on.
I kind of binged through that and really, because they're long episodes, so very well done.
Yeah.
What is the other thing? I'm watching Harley Quinn, which is on Netflix. Harley Quinn, the animated TV show.
Oh, the one where she's dating Poison Ivy, and it's her own show, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
watching that, and that's okay. Like I'm, and maybe there's something, again, there's a bit of a nostalgia aspect to it. It's all comes from, the Batman animated show. That's like kind of where it all, and I mean, I appreciate the humor of the show. I just don't find it. I don't know. To me, it's not that funny. It's okay. I can't really say that I'm loving it or hating it. I'll often like draw and listen to it and just like Alan Tudyk, who's Resident Alien, and he's in Firefly. He's great
awesome.
voice actor. He's awesome, great actor, great voice actor. Anything he's in, I love his voice. So it's worth. And then I'm not remembering his name, but he's in Loot. He plays like King Shark or whatever. He's a great comedian. And of course, I'm a fan of Kaley Cuoco from Big Bang Theory, right? So I mean, I like all the voice actors, and like they're all funny. It's not really that funny to me. But yeah, like I still keep on thinking about Blue Eye Samurai. I feel like that was just that's been the most recent animated show that I've watched period, that I'm just going, oh my God, this is like, I can't get enough of this. I can't wait for what they do for the second season. It is such a if you haven't seen it, it is such a beautifully, oh, you haven't seen it? Okay.
I haven't.
Such a beautifully rendered, character driven, compelling story of that time in Japan. It's so good. Such a great show. Yeah, like it's just one of those things that I don't necessarily go back to watch shows over without having a lot of space and time between them.
Yeah.
I would go back and watch that show again. Like it is such a great show.
Right on. Like I had a buddy, my childhood best friend, actually, still really is. He's out in London now, but every once in a while we reconnect, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, have you seen Blue Eye Samurai?" I'm like, "Not yet," but he's like, "Dude, you gotta check it out because of honestly everything you've just mentioned." That's one of them where I'm like, I need to do that. And then Harley Quinn's another one where I've got my friends from Toronto, and they're like, "Yeah, I would say they know comics, but they're not comics readers, but they're familiar with it all." And they were like, "Yeah, Harley Quinn's fantastic. It's funny. It's different." And I'm like, "All right, I'll check it." Also, Kevin Manklo says, "Nice sketches, Keith." Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so I think I had shown this the last time when we did our sketch duel, that I was like, well, I'm going to just do the same thing that my compatriots are doing, which is start fresh. But I still really enjoyed watching Kevin, both Mike and Kevin illustrate, and and that was a lot of fun to see what they were going to do.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that's my 2 cents about X-Men '97.
Well, it's interesting because very similarly, I guess there are differences in the situations, obviously, but the Avatar show that came out on Netflix recently, which uses 10 episodes to do what the original animated show took 28. I forget what it is.
Well, I'm still watching it, so no spoilers for that.
No spoilers. No. It's just there are some things, like obviously they're taking a cartoon and they're adapting it into live. So there are some things that will be just inherently difficult without a stupidly large budget, which Netflix already dropped on hiring some really good actors. and doing some really amazing props. But like overall, I enjoyed the show. Like straight up, the Netflix Avatar, it's good. I definitely think that the way that they showed some characters, I didn't like because of some of the changes they made. How far are you in it, Keith?
I've literally just watched the first episode.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, lock and key. I will say the one thing, because I believe in the first episode you would already have seen her. The fact that they introduced Azula so soon was odd to me, because like obviously she doesn't actually appear in the show until the second season, but she's like right there. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where, having grown up with Avatar, The Last Airbender, of course, and now seeing Netflix's adaptation, I'm like, cool. You've changed some things. You're showing different sides of situations, which I appreciated. But other stuff, I'm like, why would you do that? You know, it's just, I'll be interested to see your opinion on it now, knowing that you've watched the original, because it's good. It's just different, and I like that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm probably going to be similar in mindset to you, because I revere that. The original show, I was the first time I was like, oh my God, they can actually make a or an animated show where you don't have like a story of the week. Like, that was the first time, and maybe, I'm sure anime has done it, but that was the first time I'd seen a Western, and also this is the first time I'd actually seen like a hybridized Western Eastern type of show.
Yep.
Where they were developing these characters over episodes, over years, and so like you're invested in the world they're building and the characters, and it was so beautiful and lush, and everything about that show showed me what an animated TV show could be. If they were to, and actually from that point, it was almost like every animated show that came out after that followed that formula, where they're like, oh, so there's an audience that'll actually stay with us if we make this long form story versus episodic, shows. And so that to me, that show kind of opened up the door for a lot of different shows that came after that, and so including Blue Eye Samurai. And so I think that it's going to be kind of hard to. I after the first episode, I'll say this: I find that the characters, or the actors playing the characters, feels like they're getting it right. I'll see how much, whether I feel that way throughout the whole series.
Fair.
Because especially, you have these characters imprinted upon the way that you'd like them to be. And it's kind of weird. We're going, like a lot of times it's like, well, I guess when a comic book adapted into a movie or TV show, you have a certain way that you want to see the characters. So I get, like I'm open to if they have their own interpretation of them. That's never turned me off per se. It's more of if they're doing it in pursuit of telling a good story, that I'm okay with it. If they're doing it, and the character, just off the top of my head, the one of the show, the Iron Fist, the Danny Rand character, I just had a really hard time getting into like him as the actor.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only person. Like that was one of the big issues with I don't know if they actually the actor who played Iron Fist, I think like they just threw him into the fire, and I think there was a lot of issues with him being able to do martial arts in a convincing way, and then just that kind of thing where I was just like, oh man, this is not what I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, no, I do remember. Let's say I believe I remember, so I could be wrong on this, but I do remember news articles or someone had posted a story where basically he was like, "I'm not going to do like intense martial arts training." He's just like, "I'm an actor. I'm going to act, and I'll take the the choreographers and stuff will walk me through it." And I'm like, "But you're portraying a character who is a master martial artist who's extremely physical. Like, you got to get that right." And I think, yeah, like having a change like that from the character to the screen, it's like, ooh. But like sort of to take it back to Avatar, I think the kicker is if you're adapting a comic into a live thing or even into a cartoon, right? There's no voices here. There is no pacing, right? It's as I read it, like we were saying earlier. So when you make a scene animated or make it live action, you get to dictate that, right? You get to put your interpretation on it. So I'm more forgiving of that than I am, I think, in the case of Avatar, because with Avatar as the cartoon, you have the pacing, the emotion, the way that they're saying things, how the action looks. Like, you have everything. It's like, to me, like if you're not giving me something new or perfectly recreating what was there, I think that's where you have a potential downfall. As I've said, to keep it spoiler free, I enjoy the show. It does stuff differently. I take issues with certain things, which we can talk about once you've seen it, like completely. Like overall, I don't know. I think it catches some flack. I am happy though that they are doing season 2 and 3 already confirmed. So, yay, honestly. Also, Keith, we've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. We kind of go through that. Hey, listen, it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So, and I enjoyed working on this little. So, just for everybody watching, this is like a thumbnail. This is about as much as I would zoom in. It's 200%, and this is from this point on. I would actually blow this up to either comic book sized or larger, and then work on some more of the detail. You can see that it's when you zoom in, it's still kind of loose. So I would tighten some of that up. But I don't know if I'm actually going to do anything with this. This is just fun to play with and at this size. Who knows?
Question: if you were to print that onto a page, how big would that drawing be? Or that
if I were
thumbnail?
to put this on a transfer,
like if you were to put that in a printer at the size that it's at, how big would that be? Like,
it would be 2 inches by 3, roughly. Like,
God! So like,
there's
half the size of my phone, like that big.
Yeah. So there's here. If you look in the corner, it's hard to see it, but there's actually a.
Like the measuring thing.
Yeah. So let's see if.
So it's tiny.
Yeah. So it's
like a business card almost.
So it's less than 2 inches wide and less. It's a little bit over 3 inches. So it's pretty small. That's again. There's an advantage to working at this size. It means that you're not going to get too precious with detail, and you can work faster. And it's what I encourage people. You develop all of this stuff in the thumbnail stage, so that when you actually when you blow it up to the proper whatever size you're going to work at, a lot of this will have been figured out. A lot of the hopefully proportion, the composition, the lighting, a lot of that you can figure out. So then it's just working on detail and tightening it up and making sure, and of course you may lose some of that energy that you got in the small. So it's that kind of balance of like leaving some of what you started with in there and then just trying to tighten up the places that need a little bit more tightening. But it's just the more I'm doing this, the longer I've been drawing, the more I realize how important it is to really get those the thumbnails
Mhm.
tight as possible. Now, that's not actually, you don't have to do that either. I sometimes actually, with one project I'm working on right now, I'm making them looser purposely because
Oh, okay.
because I want to be able to again, I guess I shouldn't say that you want to make it as tight as possible. It's dependent on how much. If you're working solo, obviously that's one thing. If you're working with somebody else, that's another. If you're what the end is gonna look like, and you may want to put more painterly, make it a more painterly process. You're not actually going to need to tighten it up. You may want to leave it loose for a reason. So, I mean, there are reasons to not, but what I'm trying to say is to problem solve a lot of the issues out in the thumbnail stage so that there's no big surprises when you get to the finished. Because you don't want to have to like spend time going, man, this is not working at all. Right. When you see this in a small size, like like for you immediately kind of like, the first one, I like that one. And then, there's something about it that feels nice to you. And so, you're seeing that in a Zoom, like from far away. So that means that there's something working with it that, the closer you get, then I can start to put in a little bit more finishing to it. But, it felt good to you from a distance, right?
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, piqued my interest. It was something I was like, I want to see that.
Yeah. So
right on.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I guess we're done for.
Yeah, we're done for the day. That's cool.
Yeah.
So again, Keith, thanks for coming on. Thanks for chatting cartoons, comics, drawing, and fleshing out your thumbnail. I'm gonna call it a drawing because oh my god, but your thumbnail. And you know what? Shameless self-promotion time, Keith. What have you got going on in the next little bit? What can people expect from you, no matter how little or big it is, that you're willing to share?
Yeah, right. So Saltwater #5 start production this week. And yeah, I've got to kind of keep a tight lip on that. It's just for those that have been reading the previous issues, it's going to reward you to read #5. So I'm thumbnailing that now. I've been working on Summer on the Swing, which is the story my mom and I are working on. That's been the other project that I'm dividing my time up with. And that one is in the rough art stage, as well as the umpteenth editing stage in the prose part of it. It's going to be like a graphic novel / prose book. So I've been working on that. I've got another graphic. It's not a graphic. It's a 4-part story that they're just, each book is pretty big. And I've been slowly working on that, doing the thumbnails for that. So hopefully I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that project as it comes to a little bit closer to fruition.
Yes, please.
I've got, Wayside has me and Howard back. Hopefully, if we can get a few people signed up for our workshop on May 18th at Wayside Comics in Newmarket. And it's going to be a comic book creation workshop from a writer and artist perspective. So if you have a project that you're trying to develop, you want to get to that next level, well, come to our workshop and we can actually help get you there, give you, specific input on whether it's, the writing aspect or the art aspect or both. So it's, you can go to my Facebook or Instagram, and there will be information on the Wayside workshop. There's a QR code you can scan, or there's a URL you can go to sign up and make sure you get a spot. And then there's I think the weekend after, just double check my calendar before I commit to that. I believe on the 25th. I also have similar thing. Yep, there you go. Thank you. So there's a workshop for people that want to do comics at Hero's Tale in Cambridge, and that's going to be the 25th.
Oh, so, right on.
Yeah. And similar idea, bring your own project in, and we can help. I can help you. It's just going to be me. It's not going to be Howard in that one. I can help you in regards to creating your comic, taking it to the next level. I'm a writer as well. So, so those are things that I have coming up.
I love it. Well, thank you for letting us know. And absolutely, folks, if you're listening live with us now, thanks for tuning in. If you're on Instagram, you're on Twitch, you're on YouTube, wherever you are, thank you kindly. Thank you for leaving comments. If you'd like to support the show, please do. The first link down below has basically a direction to Keith's site where you can support the show, get some cool little perks out of it. And of course, get Keith's books. They're good books. I'm excited for the 5th issue. And comment down below what you think of myself, Keith's amazing doodles and sketches. I call them illustrations, but he disagrees. And we will see you next time. Keith, have a good one.
Thank you, sir. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2. Collector problems, cliffhanger.